All right, so these are our Flexi-bats. They have a engraved foot, it's about 1/4 of an inch, and then we custom engrave different designs into the bottom of the bat, and we change them up month to month, depending on different designs. And essentially, when you throw on them, you're going to get the design that's imprinted. Thank you, in the bat as you work. And so, for example, I just showed you our cactus one. So this is an example that we peeled off of the bat yesterday that has the cactus on the bottom, and you can see that it has your built-in foot with it. I pulled out a fan favorite also that was made yesterday. And this is our beautiful mandala bottom. And you can see that it has a nice foot, and this was trimmed right to the edge. So it has a little bit of cleanup that needs to happen with the sponge, but besides that, everything is there. So the first thing you're gonna do, I'm gonna take off my hair elastic. The first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your clay, and I like to flatten at the bottom. You can do it tapping it on the wheel or whatever, but you want to start with a nice flat bottom, so that way certain areas don't fill in while other areas cannot. So you're going to take your clay and you're going to slam it right down on your wheel, and then you're going to turn your wheel onto a medium speed. So what's most important is the way that you compress your clay right now to get it adhered and stuck to the wheel. So what you're going to do with your hands wet, so this is a little bit different than possibly when you're typically throwing. You're going to put your right hand under your left hand and you're going to put some downward pressure. This is going to help and make sure that your clay is stuck to your Flexi-bat. So my thighs are squeezing in, my elbows are down, and I'm just pushing down. I'm not using that typical force that we use when we push something into the center. I'm more centering by holding it right down onto the clay. So now that I know that my piece is stuck really well to the bat, I can start kind of coning it up. So I can cone like I normally do. What I do when I cone is I use this heel and I use these fingers and I almost push together and the clay starts to come up. And when I'm doing demos, I like to kind of exaggerate my hand movements a little. So for example, you can really see where the clay hits, and that does help show exactly what part of your hand is the one that's supposed to be doing the work. So I'll do another cone up, and then I'll bring this baby down. You don't have to cone your work. You know, that's a conversation in itself. So I'm just bringing my clay down into my hockey puck. Now, because my clay is stuck and it's fairly well centered, there's not too much wobbling around. I can go and give it a little bit of a push forward. I have had people say to me that their bat has flown right off the wheel. You need to use more downward pressure to keep it on the wheel than forward pressure the way you can typically kind of push your clay. So think about your hands rather than forcing something, you're molding it where it eventually molds into the middle instead of pushing it forward. So my clay is well centered. And now I'm going to drill my hole. So when I drill my hole, I like to put my thumb between my pointer finger and my middle finger. And I use these two fingers. And by putting my thumb in here, it locks me into place. I also like doing that because it allows me to put my thumb on the rim. And that compresses my clay down while I drill my hole, which allows me to make sure that it stays centered. So I'm widening my base right now. And after you widen, one of the most important things for you to do is to compress your bottom. So you're gonna wring your sponge out well. I know people that use throwing sticks and stuff or a rib tool, and you're not trying to move the clay around. You're just trying to kind of push it down to make sure it's stuck in all the nooks and crevices that it should be. So after I widen my bottom, I actually like to collar my piece up. And I almost feel like this is my first pull without even really having to pull, because if you notice, my piece got somewhat higher, and I didn't have to do any throwing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my thumbs together, and these fingers together are what is going to pull my wall up. So I'm pinching the clay the same way I normally would. Now your first pull, you need to be careful that you're not too aggressive, because your clay is not stuck to a hard surface. It's stuck to a flexible material that can easily come off of the wall. So you just want to be careful that you don't go too aggressive on your first pull. And then after that, you can continue to throw your pieces up normally. So this is my second pull. I'll probably give this guy one more, and then I will take him off. And then we'll run through this one more time. Okay. Okay, so I have my wood tool, and what I like to do is I usually start up a little bit higher, and I'm gonna start from up here, and I like to cut in. At first, when you're using the Flexi-bat, it's kind of hard to find your foot. You might cut in too deep, but as you get better at it, you kind of create a muscle memory where you know how deep or how low you can go. So I'm just going to cut this off. On my next example, I'll show you how you can use calipers to help you. So now that I'm so close to my foot, I'm just kind of skimming it with the wood tool just a little bit. Until I can tell that I'm at the edge of my foot. You'll feel a textural difference when your tool hits the edge of the rim, so you will know that it's there. And after I trim my foot is when I like to make my shaping decisions, because it's different than when you throw, and then you can make your decisions for certain things by trimming. So I already know what my foot is going to look like. So if I want a wider foot, I mean a wider belly or something, this is when I would make my choice, because I already know what everything else is going to look like. So I can push that out a little bit. I can squeeze my top in a little bit. I can compress my rim. I like to clean my bat up before I take it off the wheel. So I'm just going to take my sponge and clean it up. This is helpful so you, after you take your clay off the bat, like a day later or something, you can use the bat again right away. You do not need to wait for it to dry. So these come up fairly easy. And out, and then you're able to start piece 2. So I'm going to grab a second bat. And then on this bat, I'm going to go over just a few different things, tips and tricks that I like to do. So that was pretty much the basics of throwing. Some different things that you can do to help adhere your clay to the bat. You can use some cornstarch. So this is just like 99-cent cornstarch with a brush, and you can put it on your bat. And this will just help with some, if you have some extra sticky clay that might be more like slippy than sticky. I'm just putting a little bit on. I don't want it to fill in the cracks, but I just want it to kind of fill in where the clay is going to touch a little bit. So that's one of my first tips. And I know that we already talked about patting your bottoms nice and flat. You want to make sure you have a flat bottom, and then we'll run through the whole thing again. And this time I'll talk to you guys about calipers. Actually, so you know what we'll do to make things easier is why don't we'll measure them right now with the calipers. And then so this will just give you a little bit better of an idea of how close you can go before you really start to hit the foot. You can use this tool right here, the little wing nut, and that actually tightens the calipers so they don't lock out of place if you, I don't know, I put things places. I'm not very gentle with my stuff. So you can take your clay, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, right on the wheel, give it a good push in. And again, remember, we're not using a lot of forward pressure. We're only pushing down, elbows on our thighs. And we're trying really hard not to push and slide the clay off right away. It's a stamp, so you want to make sure that downward pressure is what is going to give it the compression that it needs. You don't want to push it forward or you're going to slide it off of your design. Okay. Awesome. So next thing we're going to do, same thing. I did my centering. I'm going to comb my piece and I'll center it on the way back down. I'd like to give a shout out to my mom, Gina, and Lauren in the audience right now. All right, so I have my cone and I'm gonna push my clay down. So I'm gonna put my thumb on my pointer finger and I like to push down and forward. And then what I'm gonna do is I am applying some of that forward pressure and that hockey puck motion that I think is pretty common when it comes to centering our clay. So again, I'm going to drill my hole. I like to put my pointer finger between my middle finger so I can use my thumb to compress my wall as I drill my hole. And I actually feel like putting my pointer finger over the rest of my hand, I feel like it just gives me a little bit more control. So I'm widening my piece right now. So it has a nice flat bottom. And when you compress your bottom the same way that I'm doing, especially with the sponge, it also helps to get out some water, which is going to help your piece dry at a consistent time. So I'm going to take my piece and I'm just going to collar it in. If anyone's interested, tomorrow Lauren will be doing hand building demos with the Flexi-bats. I don't know what she has up her sleeve. So you're going to put your thumbs together. You want to pinch your fingers. It's the act of pinching your fingers together that's moving the clay up. Again, you don't want that first pull to be too aggressive. If it's too aggressive, because it's suctioned to the bat will come off. So you just want to be a little extra careful. Okay. So this is my second pull. It's working pretty well. If you notice, it's nice and quiet. It doesn't have any of that loud wiggle wobble that you typically hear from a bat. It's pretty nice. I think I can get a little bit more clay out from my corner, so I will do that. Okay. And again, I'm gonna try to go back down to the bottom and just get out some of my clay water, compress my base so my stuff dries at the same rate, right? If your pot dries too fast, but your foot is still wet, you can't take it off with a bat yet because it's gonna stick. So you need to make sure it's nice and dry down there. I'm gonna cut these. I'm gonna go just a little bit more, just until I hit that foot mark. Give this guy a cut. And I found the edge of my design. So if I wanted to check, because we were talking about our calipers, this is when I would put this right here, right in the middle. And as long as it's not really picking up any clay, you know that you're nice and close to the bottom. Right. So I'm gonna shape this guy. I'm gonna go over a little rolled rim with you guys. So I'm thinning out my top. I'm taking my top off. I really thinned it out. So let's cut that off. And we'll try again. There's actually like a dry chunk in here. I wonder, we've been having this issue at the studio with people putting bisque in the greenware. So I'm just thinning out my top just a smidge. And I'm gonna add a little decorative rolled rim. So I'm using my finger, my middle finger, my ring finger, and I'm just pushing it over until I have a top hat. And then I'm able to curl it right under. And then I was able to create this nice rolled rim on my cup. Those are really nice because they allow your edge to be a little bit stronger. So I use them when I make dog bowls. And again, I just trimmed my foot. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna add just a little bit more detail in my belly because I can make my choice knowing that I'm not trimming later. And then I'm gonna clean my bat off before I take it off the wheel so it's ready to go for the next time I use it, since we don't want to add any more water back into it. And that's about it. So I will show you guys this up in close and personal. A little rolled rim, a little hot. And then I'll show you guys again some of the examples that I went over at the beginning. So this is our new bat that has some cactuses on it. So I pulled this off earlier today. So you can see the difference. If I hold it like this, you can see where the foot is, and then you can see the indents from the cactus design. This is one of our most popular ones. This is our mandala design. So this has the same thing. It's a nice built-in foot. And then you can see that it has your mandala imprint on it. And you see these were thrown right up to that wheel mark, and then you don't have to do any trimming. So to take these off of the wheel, you can just lift them up. If you start throwing larger pieces, you can get a piece of MDF board. And what you would do is you'd put the MDF board right underneath, and then you slide it right under so that way it doesn't warp your vessel. And that helps a lot. So I just threw 2 pieces for you. If anyone has any questions, let me know.